Hey everyone, so if you are a returning subscriber, welcome to the channel, and if you are a new viewer, welcome. So if you don't know me, I am Maggie. I live in Connecticut with my husband and our 5-year-old son, and I am an avid crocheter. So this is the first ever Crochet Vlogcast here at Maggie's Creations. And today we are going to talk about finished objects, what's on my hook, maker plans, and things that I have recently purchased. And I have a huge pile of things to share with you guys. So let's jump right in. First off, I have been quite busy making things. I have a few finished objects. I have recently done some stash busting, and I made these two beautiful half double crochet scarves out of a bulky yarn that I had in my stash. And my plan for these scarves is I was testing out just random patterns of using up yarn and testing patterns. And so I'm going to keep one, and then the other one I am doing Hannah of the Cozy Cottage Crochets podcast. I am going to be doing the Spread the Warmth make along. So I'm going to be donating a whole bunch of stuff to a local parish that is collecting scarves and shawls and blankets and all of that. So I decided I'm going to keep one of these scarves for myself, and the other one will be going to that. And then along with that make along, I have been stash busting yarn and trying to pick a pattern. Lion Brand is doing a Hat Not Hate campaign, and so I found some blue yarn in my stash, and I found a basic half double crochet hat pattern. But as you can see, this is their 3 to 5 let me take the scarf off. This is their 3 to 5-year-old pattern, and I did this one in, I believe this is a 5.5 or a 5mm hook, and then I switched down to a 4mm hook, and this thing freaking fits my head. So I don't know, this pattern was just way too big. I didn't end up liking it. But I did stash bust and use up some blue yarn, so I made those. And then I found a pattern for just a basic puff stitch hat, and I made one of those, as you can see. So I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to be doing as far as blue hats go, but I'm going to make a few more blue hats, and then I will send those off to the Hat Not Hate campaign. So that is my plan of what I'm going to be doing for that make along, and also just kind of stash busting, because one of my goals for 2019 was to, or is, I should say, not was, to use up a lot of my yarn, because we recently moved out of our apartment and in with my sister temporarily. And in packing my yarn up, I realized I had a lot of it that I wasn't doing things with, and I kind of always felt that I needed to go out to the store and I needed to buy a certain color, or I felt the need to buy yarns. And that's not to say that I haven't bought yarn this year, and I have. But I need to love my stash and, you know, find projects for the stuff that I have in my stash. So that leads us into what is on my hook right now. I have a couple of projects going. One of the things that I did over the weekend is I took a red yarn that I had, which is at the bottom of this. I took a bunch of red yarn because I was gonna do 7x9 squares for Warm Up America, and do a bunch of those for the Spread the Warmth make along. But then I changed my mind and I decided to make stuff for the local parish that I found instead, and the Hat Not Hate campaign. So I took the little shell stitch part that I had started on, and I found another red yarn in my stash, and it is living in this bag right now, and I started a shell stitch scarf. So I have a shell stitch scarf which is living in this hooked on crochet bag that I found at a local yarn store. So I have that scarf going at the moment. And then while I was at church on Sunday, I found a scarf in my stash that was actually a lot further along than this. I had last year for Christmas made my husband's two brothers and my two sisters and my brother-in-law all got blankets for Christmas, and this was the remnants of one of the blankets that I made. And so I had started a scarf, but I couldn't remember the pattern, and I hadn't saved the pattern with it, and I sat there at church and I was trying to figure out the pattern and trying to replicate it. So instead I ripped it out, and now I am not that far into it because I only just started it, and I have not yet worked on it, but it is essentially going to be a window pane scarf. So I have those two scarves in progress, and those will most likely be going into the pile for the Spread the Warmth make along, and I will be donating them to the parish, which I am sure you guys will see. And then now we get into the massive load of stuff. I am working on the Jada in Stitches calendar blanket. I have kind of slacked off a little bit. I know coming up, well, actually, if you guys are seeing this, the day this is posted, Friday the 22nd, today is coming out the next installment of this calendar blanket. So I need to get cracking. As of when I'm filming this, it's Wednesday, the 20th of February, and Friday, February 22nd, the next installment of the canvas part comes out. So I need to get cracking on doing my blanket part. I have not yet, let me flip this. I have not yet gotten through the January portion. I just kind of like have been slacking on this a little bit.
Mommy.
So I need to definitely go ahead and get cracking on finishing that up for Friday. And then the next project that I have going is part of the Pisces make-along that Kalisha of the Quirky Monday Craftcast is doing. I am making, I think it's called the Movie Night Cocoon Cardi or something. It's the Movie Night something. But essentially it is just a giant granny square that you make until it is the size that the pattern calls for, and then it gets folded in half, and you do up an armhole, and then that basically creates your cardigan. So I am doing this in the navy color, just because my Nana had given me a bunch of yarn that she was no longer using. She asked my dad to ask me if I wanted the yarn, because she often makes a lot of Afghans and stuff, and then I guess she had leftover yarn that she no longer wanted, and she knows I crochet now, and she didn't know what to do with it, so she gave me a lot of balls of this Red Heart Soft Navy, and I guess I had some in my stash, so I decided, you know what, I would just throw it all together and make this pattern and have a lovely, nice sweater that I could wear. The next project that I have is my never-ending purple yarn blanket. Last year was my 5-year mark of being in remission from Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer. And so I intended to do the 2018 Moogly crochet along, and I bought a bunch of purple yarn because purple is the color for Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I did a couple of squares and then I just fell off doing the crochet along because I was new to crochet at that point. It was overwhelming doing patterns every 2 weeks. I wasn't as obsessed with crochet as I am now, and I didn't like it. So I had all this purple yarn in my stash, and then I had yarn that I had like collected from family and just a random, I don't even know where this yarn came from. And I had a pattern pinned on Ravelry, which is the Beans and Baubles Afghan pattern from Jean of the Crochet Crowd. So I have been working effortlessly on this blanket to build it in just whatever purple I have in my stash. And yeah, I kind of have been brushing this off to the side, so you guys will probably see this here and there of how it's going. I'm hoping, my hope was to have this finished when the Love Your Stash Cow that Hannah of the Cozy Cottage Crochet podcast is doing ends, but I obviously slacked off and have not worked on this. I've been starting a lot of other stuff and working on stuff. And speaking of starting other stuff, that leads me into my maker plans, because one of the things that was on my maker plan list is I found the Supernatural cowl that Crochet Luna is doing. And I started it last night. I don't have the pattern printed out to show you, but it's going to be a corner to corner. This is my first graph cam. So I started the corner to corner. So I am 6 rows into this. So it starts off with Real Teal in Red Heart's Real Teal. So that is the start of it. So that is kind of, it was a maker plan, and then I had slipped into it and started it, so it's a little bit what's on my hook and maker plan. I am also planning to start Kalisha of the Quirky Monday Craft Cast. As you saw, I started that, she's doing the Pisces crochet along, where you use any Pisces or Marine Life pattern, or you use any blue or green yarn. So I started that movie night pattern in the blue yarn. I'm also planning to do, she has her own pattern called the Just Feel Better shawl. I'm planning on starting that. I have 2 Lion Brand mandala cakes that are blue that I'm going to start up, and then that shawl I'm going to I want to try to finish that up and throw that into the pile of stuff that I am donating to the parish. And then for thrifty time for this week, I have my first ever huge box from, I bought this, everything from Love Crochet, and it is all of the yarn that I need for the Supernatural blanket, because it was actually, I found out, cheaper to get it. Why was it cheaper? Oh, I know why. It was cheaper to, I found out it was actually cheaper to buy it on Love Crochet, because they had the Real Teal Super Saver the pattern that I'm doing that I found on Etsy, which I will link down below if anybody is interested. It's called the Wayward Afghan pattern. It calls for real teal. It calls for 11 7-ounce skeins, and I had one in my stash, so I needed 10 of them. And then it calls for 4 5-ounce skeins of the Red Heart Dove ombre print. So I needed 10 of these, and I needed 4 of these, and they had 5 packs of the real teal and the Red Heart Dove. I was able to get 4 of them. I don't remember exactly. This is just the packing slip, but it doesn't say. It just says this is just like if you needed to return it. And then it just gives you like a coupon code. It doesn't tell you like how much I paid, but I think everywhere else I was looking at when I priced out the order, I think like Michael's and Joann's, it was, so my hair is different, my clothes are different, yeah, the camera died, and when I charged the battery yesterday, by the time the battery was charged, it was too late to film and too dark to film, and just life had gotten away from me. So it is now Thursday. So I'm wrapping this video up the next day. But as I was saying, I was looking at all of the yarn for the Supernatural blanket that I'm making, and even with coupons, Joann's and Michael's having Red Heart on sale, they weren't that great of deals. So I went on Love Crochet, and they happened to be the best deal for my money. And I think that total purchase, I think it was just under $60, and I think that was only because I opted for the higher shipping, the 2-day shipping, as opposed to whatever their regular shipping is. So my costs would have been a little bit lower, but I opted for that quicker shipping because that crochet along ends March. It ends the end of March, so I need to get on doing that. And oddly enough, yesterday I got some crochet goodies in the mail. One of the things that I ordered from eBay finally came in. I was not expecting it to come until next week, as opposed to what my tracking on eBay was telling me. But it is the Learn to Crochet Socks for the Family by Darla Sims, and it says 15 ready-to-go patterns for the whole family, plus learn to easily design your own socks. I am probably, sadly, not going to be delving into this book for a little while because, as you can see, I have all the other like blankets and crochet alongs. I may or may not, I don't know, do some socks as quick projects or take along projects. I actually may start the socks as my Dungeons and Dragons project because my husband runs our Dungeons and Dragons group as our dungeon master, and I like to crochet while we're there because obviously turns take a lot, and you know, it helps me to pay attention and focus more, and it's getting kind of harder to have like a bigger project like a blanket or something else to work on. So I think if I had a smaller project like socks or a scarf or something along those lines to do. So I think I may start leaving the socks as my like project for those kind of things. But yeah, I was also interested in learning to crochet socks because, I don't know, I just kind of, being at the year mark of crocheting now, I'm kind of starting to really want to step up my crochet game and my husband has also been asking me lately, he's like, well, why don't I see you making anything that like you could wear? Or he's like, you know, you're always on Reddit and it's like, you show me this or you show me that. And it's like, why don't you make that? And it's like, I haven't ever felt confident. And it's like, today I was sitting down and I'm actually working on a project for a friend of mine because she reached out to me and she recently had a baby girl, and she found this princess crown that she wanted, and she's like, hey, could anybody crochet this? And I was like, oh yeah, I should be able to do that. So I was like looking at the pattern that I had found, and there's a gauge swatch on it, and I never gauge swatch stuff. I'm always just like, because usually I always make blankets or just stuff that, you know, gauge doesn't really matter on. So I was like, you know what, I'll sit down and I'll play around really gauge swatching today. And I'd never felt confident in myself of doing the mathematicals of gauge swatching and taking the time to figure out, you know, what hook do I want to use? What yarn do I want to use? Just all that goes into a thing. I've always just really wanted to just pick up the yarn, pick up the hook, boom, get started on the project. I don't want to take the time to figure all of that stuff out, but I have been thinking about it now. I'm looking at things of getting more in depth with it and looking at it like, okay, I have this yarn and I have my hooks. Now, how can I expand on that? You know, I know these basic stitches, but, you know, and there are all these patterns on Ravelry, Pinterest, you know, from all these designers, but what could I do? You know, could I challenge myself and make my own pattern? Could I design it myself? You know, is that something that I'm interested in doing? And I know that that's not something that I'm gonna like really launch into, like designing patterns and, you know, obviously like doing these, you know, vlogcasts and everything. I'm not gonna make it a job necessarily because I don't want to turn my hobby into a job where it feels like I'm being forced to crochet because we need the money. I definitely want to keep crocheting as a hobby that I do because I enjoy it, because I love it now. You know, it's something that relaxes me, that I find so amazing that I can pick up that skein of yarn and turn it into something. And it does get frustrating and it does get challenging. And believe me, I have been so frustrated lately, especially with tension and gauge. I've been having a lot of issues with that. I made my sister a hat and I followed the pattern, and I followed the pattern to the T. I even gauge swatched a bunch of times, played around with different hook sizes, and the thing still came out like a freaking bowl. And it's like, what am I doing wrong? I changed yarns, I changed hook sizes, and it just, like, it boiled down to it. I went and I read the comments, like, on Ravelry, and people were just like, you know what, this hat just, I don't know if the designer was drunk or something, but it just turned out like a bowl. And I was like, okay, so it wasn't just me. Maybe something was off with the pattern. And you know what, I just put it off to the side, and I was like, you know what, you tried. It was a failure, but, you know, so sometimes you just have to take a step back, walk away from the project for a little bit, do something that's easier. Sometimes, you know, doing that, it's, you know, you gotta take a step back, go back to those easier projects, you know, knock something out for a little bit. The other day I sat there and it sounded crazy, but I think what really kicked my crochet motivation back, because I had lost it for a while working on all of these different projects. I I wasn't enjoying it as much anymore. So I sat down, and for Valentine's Day, I crocheted these little hearts to stick in with Valentine swaps that I was doing. And I sat there with I pulled out the cotton yarn that I wanted to use. I grabbed my crochet hook. I plugged in an audiobook, and I just sat there and I worked on heart after heart after heart after heart. And it was just like a granny style heart, but it was just, a basic pattern. And it was just so easy to just sit there and do it. And I think that's sometimes what you forget as you're doing this is you forget those easy things and the easy stuff of sometimes you just have to go back to that simple pattern, go back to a simple granny square, make a couple of them and just stash them away for a while, who cares if you just don't use them for a while, if you're one that works with the expensive yarn, and you just find yourself, you don't know what to do with it for a while, grab a skein of Red Heart or Karen or whatever your preference, and just, what can you make with it for a while, even if it's just a simple half double crochet, single crochet, whatever you want to make, and just make something simple. So that's what I've been challenging myself to do lately, and I definitely am gonna delve into making stuff. And yeah, as I said, I would love to, I definitely do want to tackle, like I flipped through here, and there are definitely a lot of different patterns. Like they have the crew socks for women that I thought looked good, and I know my son has been asking for, I bought some sock yarn, or some yarn that I could use for socks the other day, and he picked out a couple of patterns, and there's actually a crew socks for boys pattern in here, so I want to try doing that. And I think I may actually like for the first ever sock that I crochet, I think I may start with this pattern, just because like obviously I would need to make for him, I would probably need to make a small, so that would let me practice making socks in a smaller size. But yeah, I want to start making the socks, but obviously with all the different cows that I'm participating in and the make-alongs and the projects that I have going right now, I want to try to knock a couple of those out so that I don't have so many works in progress built up, because I'm realizing now that, I have things like, I have the 2019 calendar blanket that obviously won't be finished until December, because obviously it's a year-long project, which is fine. But like I have the purple blanket that really I want to, knock out and get that done. Obviously I need to get the supernatural blanket done. I have the spread the warmth make-along coming up. I have the 2 projects that I'm entering into the Pisces make-along. So I kind of want to get those projects knocked out and done before I start really any new projects, just because I kind of feel at the moment I'm like overwhelmed with projects, because I sit down to work on something and I'm like, what do I want to work on? I don't know what to work on, I think like, oh, I shouldn't work on this, I should work on that. And then I feel kind of like guilty because I'm sitting there and I'll be working on something and I'm like, oh, but then I'm not working on this, and that's kind of stuck like that, and I'm not progressing on this, and it's just kind of like, I feel like I have too many works in progress, so I think I need to kind of work on setting a goal of, okay, maybe I have, one major work in progress, like a blanket, and then I have something like the socks that is my on-the-go project that I can take places with me, like Dungeons and Dragons, church, those kind of places. That's like a smaller project that I can work on. And then maybe I have things like the scarves or hats or things that will take me a lot less time to work on, that are, quicker projects that could be done in a matter of hours or a day or two. So I definitely need to rein in my projects lately, and get control of those. But I do also have some shopping plans coming up too. I found out, because I do browse a lot of the Reddits. The popular Reddits that I go on Reddit Yarn Swap, Reddit Yarn Hunters, Reddit Yarn Addicts, and then the Crochet subreddit. Those are the main subreddits that I go on. And I was on, which one was I on? I think it was either the Crochet one or the Yarn Addicts one. But somebody was asking about like best places to get yarn, and someone mentioned if you have a reuse center in your area. And I was like, what is a reuse center? And apparently a reuse center is a center for like artists to donate supplies and things that they have, and then that center will sell them for like pennies on the dollar, really cheap. And they'll also sell like stuff that is already made and stuff. So I looked it up, and there is one, I think it's a half hour away. It might be 45 minutes though. It's either 30 or 45 minutes away. But I want to head out there sometime and check out their yarn section. Because I think yarn is, I know someone on Reddit mentioned that theirs does like a day event where it's like whatever you can fit in a bag for $5, like a paper grocery bag. So I definitely think that would be a cool like place to check out and get yarn. I mean, obviously it's not going to be like Michael's or Joann's or AC Moore or Hobby Lobby, you know, where you're going to be able to get the same quantity and same brand of yarn every single time that you go. But I mean, it's a great thing to support a cause, especially if you get like a chunk of yarn, you know, stuffed in a bag for $5, or even if they white it, you know, for a certain amount for like cheap, you know, I will definitely do that. Maybe not this week. I was planning to hopefully go this week, but looking at it, I'm like, you know what? Maybe that'll be my reward after the like Spread the Warmth make-along and all of these other make-alongs, you know, when I use up a lot of the yarn that I have already in my stash. Maybe that'll be like a reward to myself, kind of, you know, to go check out and restock up, because I do have quite a bit of yarn right now that needs using up. So I think that will be my plan of something that I want to do of stuff. But yeah, that is pretty much everything, and I can't think of anything else. Was there any other lifey updates? I don't think so. I don't know. I actually am planning to, and maybe I will let you guys know how this goes. I'm planning on going to tomorrow night, the day that you're actually hopefully seeing this video. The 22nd, I found a crochet group that meets at Panera Bread. So I'm actually planning to attend that this week and check it out for the first time. So I'm very excited about that, and I know my family is very excited about that. I think my husband's excited about it because he's like, you know what? That's good for you. He's like, you need to do something for you. Get away from Lucas, which is our son. He's like, you spend all the time with him. You need to take a break, get away, do something for you. And my sister gets excited because she hears the words Panera Bread, and she's like, I don't care. You can borrow my car and go to Panera Bread. Just bring me back a loaf of bread. So I will gladly go to Panera Bread, crochet for a couple hours, and bring her back a loaf of bread. Because we are borrowing her car at the moment because we do not have a car, because last year our car decided to just have a whole bunch of repair problems, and then I think it was November, beginning of December, it was going to be like a $4,000 minimum. That was just where it started. The number was $4,000 to repair it, repair bill, and it was just like, no, we will not be doing that. So we are working on getting a new car with income tax money, and I am so excited about that because I am so like stressed at borrowing my in-laws' car and my sister's car because I don't like having to, well, number one, I don't like having to drive my sister to work because it's a trip there and then a trip back home and then a trip there and a trip back home to pick her up in the afternoons. So I don't like that because it's 4 times as much gas, which sucks. And I also don't like, the feeling of like having to plan my days out of, if I want to go somewhere, feeling like I have to say, okay, I want to go this place or this place or this place. I need to borrow a car. I want that freedom to be able to like go to the reuse center that's 30 minutes away, whatever day that I want to go, without having to say, this is what I'm doing, kind of just, I don't want to have to explain it to her because I don't know. I want to have freedom again. And I want to be able to just get in the car and drive and do things and not have to like say, oh, well, I don't have a car this day or I don't have a car that day. And it's annoying. Very annoying. But yeah, I think that is everything. So I hope you guys enjoyed this first Crochet Vlogcast, and I will see you all in the next one. So I will talk to y'all later. Bye, guys.